Hey guys, in this video let's see how to do a brake fluid flush. Let's start off with the front brakes and following the instruction on the reservoir cap, clean the cap thoroughly before removing so that no dust can enter once you open it. Proceed to cover the places around the reservoir with a piece of cloth or plastic so that if any spillage does happen and the liquid falls on the body of the vehicle, it doesn't cause any serious damage to the paint because these liquids are quite corrosive. Now we can remove the reservoir cap using a star-headed screwdriver. Do consider subscribing to my channel for more such DIY content. The first screw came out quite easily, but for the second one I had to step up my game and bring out the big guns. Using a combination of the wrench and the screwdriver helped me leverage more torque and then finally remove the screw. You can clearly see the amount of rust settled on the screw, and this was the reason I had a hard time removing it. In removing the screws, then you can use some WD-40 to loosen up the rust. Also, you could use an impact driver if you have one laying around. Opening the cap, you can see a rubber diaphragm and a plastic cap. Remove them and clean it separately. Using a syringe, pull out the old brake fluid and dump it into a container. Place the cleaned plastic cap on the reservoir and move to the caliper side. Remove the rubber cap and expose the bleeder screw. Place a 8 mm closed spanner onto the bleeder screw and attach a 1/4 inch silicone hosepipe. It costed me around 10 rupees for a meter of the pipe. Make sure the pipe has a snug fit to the bleeder screw so that you can avoid any air entering into the system while you're bleeding. Keeping a small section of the hosepipe vertical, secure it in place using a zip tie. Pause the screen here to understand about the different categories of brake fluids available. For your bike, the information will be on the reservoir cap. In short, .3, 4 and 5.1 can be interchanged, but .5 cannot be interchanged. Be careful. I'll be using .4 brake fluid from Bosch and it costed me around 140 rupees for 250 ml. Make sure you use a sealed bottle only. Using old fluid or a bottle with an open seal can result in reduced performance and capitalize the brakes. Once the reservoir is filled, pressurize the system by pressing the brake lever 4 times and on the 4th time hold it in place. Move to the caliper side and release the bleeder valve. This should allow the old fluid to bleed out. Now close the bleeder valve and only then release the brake lever. To summarize, pump the lever to pressurize, hold the lever, unlock the bleed screw, close the bleed screw, and only then release the lever. If you mess up any of these steps, then it can result in air entering into the system and you might have to repeat the procedure until the entered air exits. Keep an eye on the reservoir. As you continue these steps, the level in the reservoir will fall down and refill it. Keep an eye on the fluid exiting. Once the fluid which exits looks clear like the new liquid, that means the entire system has been flushed. So that marks the end of the brake bleeding. Now you can remove the hose pipe. Be careful of any spillage. The last step is to top up the reservoir. Prior to that, we have to push in the calipers completely in so that the brake fluid doesn't overflow during your next brake pad change. Since I have the calipers removed, I am greasing the caliper pins using some silicone grease. You can use lithium grease, but it can damage the rubber boots, so be careful. Once the pistons are moved in and the calipers are attached, top up your reservoir and replace the rubber diaphragm and the plastic cap. I'm also adding a dab of silicone grease to the screws to prevent rusting. If you have anti-seize, that would be much better. Finally, engage the brake lever and check that you have sufficient pressure. If you feel the brake lever is still spongy, then it means that there are still some air left in the system and you need to continue to bleed it.
Round 2.
As for the rear brakes, the reservoir sits behind these metal rods. So you have to remove this 10 mm bolt to access the reservoir. After removing the reservoir cap, using a zip tie, I'm securing the reservoir upright. Comparatively, the rear brake fluid looks quite horrible. Again, remove the old fluid using a syringe. Since the reservoir was also quite dirty, I cleaned the interior of the unit too. And I'm attaching a spanner and the silicone hose. The steps to bleed the old fluid is still the same. There was just a tiny offset of the rear caliper pistons, so I topped up the reservoir aptly and proceeded to close the cap. Dispose the old brake fluid diligently. That's it guys, we're done with the procedure. Make sure you replace the brake fluid every 2 years. And remember, the color of the liquid is not important, but rather the moisture content of the liquid. So 2 years is an apt time to replace it. Thank you guys. Do comment if you have any questions down below. And don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, bye.